What is up, Top Shot Nation? So excited to be here today as we're going to break down and reveal all 50 plays from Run It Back 2005, 2006. I'm very grateful and lucky to be joined today by Austin Kent, our content lead, our guy with the plan that made this all possible, scouring the archives, trying to find every single play from the 05-06 season that deserved a moment in the Run It Back set. We've got 50 epic plays from 50 epic players. Austin, how are you doing today?
Doing great. We've been working so hard to get such an excellent collection of plays for this drop. I've been staring at them for way too long, getting way too excited all by myself. So I'm just so happy to be able to share these with the world.
Without further ado, studio, can we cue up our first moment? This one from Ray Allen. We got Ray Allen's first Seattle Supersonics moment, the first Supersonics moment to make it to Top Shot. Austin, break down this moment for me. Why'd we pick it?
Well, we had to get Ray beating the clock. You know, Ray was obviously became very famous for beating the clock with some three-pointers later on in his career, but he was doing it since the beginning, so happy, even though Ray could throw it down, with the best of them, especially early on in his career. It was nice to get an example of the textbook Ray.
Yeah, and one of my favorite players of all time. This was kind of at the peak of his powers just before he joined the Boston Big Three a few years later. But with the Seattle team, he took them to the Western Conference Finals. He was a superstar. So moving along here, we are going to be going alphabetically by last name, so you'll be able to keep track of who you're expecting, who you're eager for. The next player on this list, another future Hall of Famer, and Carmelo Anthony, his Denver Nuggets debut here, and a massive throwdown.
I love watching Carmelo. We get so used to watching those Carmelo mid-rangers as he's done for the better part of the past 2 decades. But young Denver Nuggets Melo, this would have been his 3rd season in the league. Just nasty throwing it down. He'd posterize anyone.
It looks like he impressed himself with this one. Let's watch the reaction. He's got vicious throwdown. That's going to go down as one of the best moments, one of the best dunks of Carmelo's career. And then look at this face. He knows it.
If I threw it down on Theo Ratliff, who was, quite the shot blocker of that era, I might be making that face too.
Moving along here, here's our first Top Shot debut in the set. This one from Shane Battier, one of the analytics community's favorite players of all time, now an executive in the league. Very, very smart player, obviously was instrumental in that analytics movement, kind of reimagining what value looks like on the basketball court. And we get a Top Shot debut from his time with the Memphis Grizzlies, where, he kind of ascended into being a household name for a handful of years. Talk about this moment a little bit.
Yeah, Shane Battier was just one of those players that we kind of, when you look back on Shane Battier, you think of all the playing basketball the right way, taking the charges, the hustle plays. And when he started out his career in Memphis, they had some fun, successful teams, and this was a Grizzlies franchise that really hadn't tasted success. Certainly not in Vancouver. They moved to Memphis, and they get this nice young core, and Shane Battier was such a big part of it. And they start winning games. I think Hubie Brown was calling the shots as the coach. Such a fun team, and Shane Battier, obviously, like you mentioned, became a pivotal piece in the Morey Ball Houston Rockets, which was sort of the first publicly praised, analytics-driven basketball front office. So it's just natural to see him do it, now that he's retired, he's to continue to be doing that stuff. But man, he was nice too.
Also,
and we don't have charge moments yet. No taking charge moments on Top Shot just yet. So sorry, Shane.
That's right. Yeah, Kyle Lowry begrudging us every step of the way. Moving along here, we get another Top Shot debut. This one from Mike Bibby, a fan favorite of the 2000s, instrumental point guard. I think if he came around in today's NBA, he'd be an even bigger star just because of his knack for hitting big shots. Big shot here at the buzzer. Very excited to see his Top Shot debut. Austin, What went into kind of choosing this moment?
Yeah, Mike Bibby was so clutch. Anybody who watched the playoffs during this era would have seen Mike Bibby do serious damage against some really great Lakers teams. I mean, in the years prior to 0506, he was just such a great, reliable player down the stretch. In this game, I'm pretty sure Mike Bibby drops 42. And while this isn't a game winner, it was a clutch bucket. The Kings didn't end up pulling out the W, but it wasn't for Mike Bibby's lack of trying. A nice little step back there that did give the team the lead, but his 42 points weren't enough to seal the deal, which is sort of textbook Mike Bibby. He was great. He was great. Didn't always result in the success that they wanted, but was such a fun player and such a really powerful player down the stretch.
Moving along here, we've got Chauncey Billups at the peak of his powers with the Detroit Pistons. We obviously got a Detroit Pistons Billups moment in Run It Back 13-14. That was kind of in his second stint with Detroit. This one definitely kind of at the peak of that era. They made it to the conference finals this year. And this is a flashy assist, as he was prone to doing.
I love Chauncey. Chauncey was one of those players that he would do things that you just didn't expect players to do at the time. I fondly remember Chauncey Billups as one of the players that I first really, really remember jacking up deep threes, the type of threes where you're like, I don't know if you should be shooting that, and then it goes through the net. So seeing him bust out a little circus pass like this to feed Antonio McDyess, it just made me, reflect fondly on that era.
Moving along, we got Andrew Bogut. This is a rookie Bogut, number 1 overall pick in this draft class, and he obviously went on to become a champion with the Warriors. This one, as he was best at protecting the rim and showing emotion.
Very formidable force Andrew Bogut was, and here he, seals a 1-point game, a 2-point game with a clutch block on Jason Terry. A little bit of a celebration afterwards, but Andrew Bogut, he was nasty in his first few years in the league.
We've got 50 plays here, so we're gonna breeze through them just so that you all can see every play that we are releasing into the Top Shot ecosystem. All of these moments will be in the packs. None of these are challenge rewards. So congratulations, community. You have a chance of pulling a really epic moment. Moving along here, we got Chris Bosh in his Toronto Raptors debut, the vicious throwdown on my New York Knicks. And this is what he did. This is just what he did in his prime.
So springy, so athletic. I apologize that it's against your Knicks, but love early Chris Bosh.
Moving along, another elite power forward of the era. This is Elton Brand, really kind of in his best season, right? He guided the Clippers to the playoffs, put up 40 in the playoffs, and this is him kind of showing the mobility, showing kind of everything that he brought to the table. Westchester County represent 914. Now, obviously, an executive with the Philadelphia 76ers. And we got our first Buffalo Braves sighting on Top Shot, too.
Yes, I loved seeing this jersey, but Elton Brand's such a huge part of a Clippers team that really was somewhat destitute for a while. This was pre-Lob City. And so Elton Brand really powering this team to the playoffs, that was a huge deal. So it's fun to see him get some Top Shot recognition. All-Star this year, too.
That's right. Moving along to Caron Butler, Tough Juice, another fan favorite of this era with the vicious handles on LeBron James. Finishing up with the layup. This guy has a remarkable story and was honestly just such a interesting. He was a part of so many big trades. Obviously, was in the Shaquille O'Neal trade. Played for a bunch of great teams. And seeing his Top Shot debut in a moment like this, where during this era, the Wizards and the Cavs definitely had a little bit of a playoff rivalry. So cool to see it kind of immortalized here.
Yeah, they definitely did. They had a lot of fun battles against each other. And I have to say, going through these 0506 plays as much as I have, seeing Caron Butler's handles, it sort of took me by surprise. I didn't remember him putting the ball on the floor as smoothly as he does in this moment, but he he did it consistently, which is fun to see. So happy to have Butler in the product now.
Moving along to Vinsanity, Vince Carter with one of the plays of the drop. Massive throwdown on Alonzo Mourning. I remember watching this live on Yes way back in the day, and oh man, he still had it. You know, people remember Vince obviously for his Raptors dunks in his Raptors days, but with New Jersey, he still brought a lot of athleticism and tenacity to the table, as evidenced here.
Yes, as a resident of Ontario, remember quite fondly how Vince Carter absolutely torched the league when he went to the Nets. Immediately started throwing down all sorts of crazy dunks like this. Like you said, one of the dunks of the year. Vince Carter was just an incredible talent, and that was the case in Toronto. It was the case in New Jersey. And anytime you can put Alonzo Mourning on a poster like that, that's NBA Top Shot that.
Moving along, we've got Tyson Chandler in his Top Shot debut from his days with the Chicago Bulls. Obviously, second overall pick in, I believe it was the 2001 NBA draft? 2002 NBA? No, not 2002, because that was the Yao draft. 2001, I want to say. And him and Eddie Curry kind of coming in as the Twin Towers of Chicago. And Chandler, of course, a little fun fact about him: the star player in the opposing team in the movie Coach Carter, loosely based off of Tyson Chandler's high school career at Dominguez in Compton, California.
Love these fun facts. Yeah, Tyson Chandler draft day trade for Elton Brand, who we had earlier. But Tyson Chandler, so long, such an aggressive, powerful dunker. We definitely wanted to make sure that we had a moment that really kind of showed just how nasty he was, dunking it around the rim. Tyson Chandler in those Bulls jerseys, I've got fond memories of that.
Moving along to one of my favorite players from childhood, Baron Davis, B Diddy, the epic crossover, hitting the shot, and this era with the with the Warriors. Obviously, he was known best for the We Believe team and also his Charlotte days beforehand. But here we see him kind of in his bag, breaking down the defense.
I love to see it. I love to see any sort of handles play that puts the defender on the floor, and then he caps it off with just such a smooth jumper. Big fan of B. Diddy.
Moving along, we've got Tim Duncan's second moment on Top Shot. Tim Duncan, obviously, one of two or three super duper stars of this era, and getting his first dunk on Top Shot. Cool to see.
Definitely. I love the Tony Parker, Tim Duncan connection for this one. Tim Duncan, just dominant.
Speaking of super duper stars, we've got another one. This one from Kevin Garnett in his Minnesota Timberwolves debut with the epic rejection on Shawn Marion, and showing the emotion too.
Unreal block. This was a game-saving block. The Timberwolves won this game by a point, maybe 2 points. But yeah, Shawn Marion's floater didn't stand a chance. Kevin Garnett could get at anything. Love to see KG's first Timberwolves moment, and I just love those black jerseys as well. So,
absolutely. Moving along here to a rookie, Danny Granger. Danny Granger, of course, became an all-star with the Pacers. A little bit slept on coming out of college, but the Pacers definitely had a gem in the late first round. And I think in today's NBA, Danny Granger might be like, a superstar just with how he spaced the floor. He was kind of a guy that was a tweener between a 3 and a 4 in his era, and then today would clearly be a stretch 4.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. A very slept on player. So we knew we definitely wanted to get Danny Granger's rookie moment into the platform.
Moving along here to Richard Rip Hamilton. He's been a guest on a few Top Shot shows in the past, and again, this is the Pistons at the peak of their powers, taking it, and Richard Hamilton just with the epic throwdown here, getting to see Rip with the ball movement. That's an epic thumbnail. Nicely done with this one.
Thanks. Yeah, anytime you can get a thumbnail that really shows the play in all its glory is nice. Nice, takes you immediately back to that moment, whether you're watching the video loop or not. So definitely happy to get more Pistons from this era out there for the collectors.
Our next moment is from Dwight Howard. This is in his prime, I want to say, or just before his prime with the Orlando Magic. The epic throwdown, one of the nicest dunks we'll see from him. And yeah, this one for sure. Orlando Magic Dwight was a problem. 3 straight Defensive Players of the Year awards, future Hall of Famer. Great to see his first Magic moment memorialized like this.
Definitely. His dunks were virtually unparalleled with how powerful he would throw them down. So happy to be able to get that first Orlando Magic a moment out there.
Moving ahead, we've got 2 AIs back to back. We'll start with Andre Iguodala. This one does have Allen Iverson in the play, of course, but this one's an Iguodala throwdown. Another guy that's a fringe Hall of Famer. And Iguodala with the Sixers, of course, was the next AI, right? Like they were bridging that gap, and the athleticism that he showed off early in his career was, second to none.
Yeah, Andre Iguodala's body of work, stretches a long, long time, and there were so many great Andre Iguodala plays from this era, and really throughout his whole career that just show how athletic and powerful he was.
Moving along to the other AI now. This one is the crowd pleaser of the draft. We talked about a relative hype score. This is probably a 10 out of 10 if there ever is one. The double crossover on Antonio Daniels from Allen Iverson. Austin, you have Allen Iverson's slam poster on your wall. What did he mean to you as a basketball fan?
Allen Iverson was just such the way he completely upended basketball culture at the time was just sensational to watch. Even in Northern Ontario, tucked away in a little hockey community, like I was just glued to everything that Allen Iverson did. His impact on the game and his impact on the world of basketball in general was just felt immediately. I've got very, very fond memories of Allen Iverson as growing up as a basketball fan. So to be able to see one of, not the most iconic AI crossover, but one of the most iconic crossovers, be able to, fit right into this run it back set was really kind of a dream come true. A long time coming, clearly.
Yeah, and it's honestly my favorite of his. I know that there are a bunch that you can cite here, but the double crossover, I remember seeing this like on SportsCenter that night and just being like, oh my God, he's just another monster. Moving along, speaking of other monsters in the NBA, we have LeBron James in his Cleveland Cavaliers debut on Top Shot. And this is a dunk that he is definitely very well known for.
Yes, certainly very well known for. And it was nice to be able to, see a dunk that he's done more recently, but from early on in his playing days. I think as nice as this moment is here, I think he's even made it cleaner in his more recent days. But love seeing LeBron get up. Tons of LeBron options clearly for this season, but definitely wanted to show that this dunk has been a part of his repertoire for a while now.
Moving along to Anton Jamison, another guy that was an all-star in his time, played for a bunch of great teams, and this era was just loaded with great power forwards, and here we see Jamison kind of putting together some fancy footwork and a fancy scoop on Robert Horry.
Yeah, another very important piece of a scary good Wizards team. The finesse that Anton Jamison had was really fun to watch.
Our next moment comes from another guy that now a coach in the NBA again, but Hall of Famer, one of the best passers you'll ever see, Jason Kidd, putting it together here.
Yeah, definitely a magician with the ball, always looking for a nice pass. Just the way he could get the defense out of position with his eyes, with subtle little ball fakes, was just, so much of Jason Kidd's, appeal as a player. So we're happy to see that there, and some really kind of ambitious throwbacks as well. It's always fun to see. So
Moving along to our next guy, this Andrei Kirilenko, I think one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated player of the mid 2000s. And here we see him showing off the vision, the fancy passing. That's a hell of a play to Carlos Boozer for the finish.
yeah, and Victor Kirilenko he could fill the stat sheet, across the board, and I think he could fill Top Shot with moments of every category. Like he's just one of those players that was physically capable of doing so many different things, and had the creative mindset to try this sort of thing, and had the skill to pull everything off. I'm a big AK fan as a fellow AK man myself. So
Moving along here to Rashard Lewis. Rashard Lewis, this is our second Supersonics moment on the platform. Vicious throwdown. Lewis, I think, one of the more underrated guys from this era as well. Obviously, he made headlines signing such a huge deal with Orlando, but then what did he do? He helped guide Orlando to the NBA Finals. So if you ask Stan Van Gundy, he'd say no regrets at that deal. It all worked out. One of the original stretch fours.
yeah, definitely. This would be the type of player I'd be very curious to see how he'd fare in today's game. He made a living, clearly, just raining down threes from 3-point land, but could also throw it down, which we see here.
Our next moment comes from Stephon Marbury. This moment near and dear to my heart as a Knicks fan of the 2000s. And Marbury, obviously, Coney Island boy, came home for the Knicks. Not everything worked out, but he did take them to the playoffs once. And here we see this was the height of the Knicks hype era. I remember, I think in the 05-06 season, Isaiah Thomas, Stephon Marbury, and Eddie Curry were on ESPN, the magazine cover. And here we see it kind of immortalized with Marbury to Eddie Curry here.
Yeah, what a creative player. Highlight reel waiting to happen. Stephon Marbury was. What was your reaction when you heard the news that Marbury was joining the Knicks?
I was very excited. I think at the time, his stats spoke for themselves. He was averaging like 23 points, 11 assists, was flashy. It was a New York kid. I remember him, obviously, as kind of the Stockton to Garnett's Malone with those Timberwolves. And I thought he was going to usher in kind of a new era of fast-paced, exciting Knicks basketball. And, it didn't necessarily work out that way, but it was still a lot of fun to watch. Moving along here to a guy that Marbury played with a few years prior, Shawn Marion, the Matrix, with his Phoenix Suns debut moment on Top Shot. This was Marion in his prime, the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns. Marion, of course, we've had on a few Top Shot shows to date. Very fun guy to talk to, and in his prime, I'd say him and LeBron were really like the two most versatile Swiss Army knives in the entire NBA. Maybe Kirilenko's in that conversation as well. But what Marion did, if you were a fantasy player in the 2000s, he was like a top 1 or 2 pick pretty much every year.
Yeah, definitely. That athleticism that he had, which sort of allowed him to dominate anything from the 3 to the 5, I guess you could say, depending on the situation. And I'm a sucker for inbound alley-oops, maybe, especially when they're from the Phoenix Suns, I guess. You can never go wrong. Shawn Marion, such an incredible dunker.
Moving along here to Kevin Martin, one of the best scorers of the 2000s. Obviously, I think at this point, best known in NBA history for being one of the centerpieces in the James Harden trade from Houston to Oklahoma City. But before those days, he was an elite scorer for the Sacramento Kings, and here we see him putting it home at the buzzer with the great celebration from his team.
Yeah, this gave the Kings a playoff win in their series against the Spurs that year. They didn't hold on for the series, but anytime you can, sneak a win out over the San Antonio Spurs, especially on a last-second, sprint down the court for an awkward, off-balance layup through contact, I think that's worthy of a Top Shot moment.
Moving along here, we've got a moment I've been very excited about for a long time. Current Hall of Famer, Tracy McGrady, in his prime, throwing it down. This is what he did. T-Mac in this era was second to none. He was on that level of the elite goats at the time. And here we see him kind of breaking down the defense, throwing it down with authority. We didn't get too many more years of this where T-Mac was really just like at his peak athletically. But here we get to see it immortalized on Top Shot.
Yeah, T-Mac during the like first half of his career and up until including this season, the way he was able to get to the basket and do it seemingly so effortlessly, the way he could just glide around the court and seamlessly transition into a throwdown, to me is one of the most the things that sort of stood out to me at the time and still does. He just, the way he could like flow through the defense while slashing was just incredible. So I'm very happy to see a move from T-Mac that sort of represents how he became such a nasty scorer, 30-point scorer, at least, a couple times. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Tracy McGrady, incredible player of that generation. So happy to get his moment out on the platform.
This moment came in his sixth straight All-Star season. You need to be an elite player to just make 6 straight All-Star games. It's as simple as that. Moving along here to one of the more entertaining guys of the era, Darius Miles. He kind of had a little bit of everything to his game. I think, again, another guy that if he came around in this era, things might have been a little bit more successful for him. But he was a very fun, entertaining player. Was hailed as a future star with those upstart Clippers teams, and here we see him with Portland hitting a big shot.
Definitely, that was such a fun Clippers team. First of all, with Darius Miles and Key Rich. Darius Miles was such a talented, athletic forward, and the unfortunate part is that so many injuries kind of derailed any time he really started to show progress, as he started really to develop into the star that he was always capable of being. And when he went to Portland, it was actually a really nice situation for him. He had some really nice games. This is a game winner over the outstretched arms of Zaza. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Darius Miles, but happy to get a moment from his Blazers run. I'll be excited to get a moment from his Clippers run. Just happy to have him.
Moving along here to Andre Miller, one of the best passers in NBA history. And this is, if you know Andre Miller, you know that one of his calling cards as an elite player was long half-court heaves, full-court shots, and alley-oops from full length of the court. And here we see that unparalleled accuracy, putting together, 75-footer.
Yeah, I love it. Anytime, the player doesn't sort of purposely wait for the buzzer to sound so it doesn't lower their field goal percentage, I'm all for it. So happy to see him connect on this one.
That is a hell of a moment right there. Okay, moving along to the MVP of this season, 2-time MVP. This is at the peak of the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns, and this is Steve Nash against his former teammate Dirk with the impossible reverse layup.
Yeah, we wanted to get a nice tough move from Steve Nash. Bonus points for the hair flowing in both the video and the thumbnail. But when we saw him going up against Dirk, obviously a former teammate, like you said, that sort of sealed the deal. We knew this is the one we wanted.
Moving along to that guy, Dirk Nowitzki, in his second moment on Top Shot. Obviously, the Mavericks made the finals this year, and Dirk in the playoffs came up big. Here we see him against the Phoenix Suns, who were kind of reputed as a team of destiny. And here we see Dirk kind of just correcting the narrative of, no, my Dallas Mavericks are legit.
Yeah, I love that. I love that shot. A little extra fanfare in the background, you'll notice. I'm pretty sure this gave Dirk his 50th point, maybe his 51st point in this game. So big time player. And he did step up in a lot of big playoff games as well.
Moving along to a Top Shot debut from one of my favorite players from childhood, Jermaine O'Neal. Obviously, just an elite player on both sides of the court for many years. At the time when he was drafted, the youngest player in NBA history to suit up for a game. Played for Portland for quite a while before ending up in Indiana, where he really developed into the two-way star. If you haven't seen on Netflix the Malice at the Palace documentary, really great, goes behind the scenes and into depth about just how much of a star Jermaine O'Neal was. Obviously, the brawl kind of overshadowed kind of all his contributions, and he was around the league for a long, long time.
Yeah, man, Jermaine O'Neal was such a force. And that Pacers team, where he was obviously Reggie Miller was maybe the leader of that team, but Jermaine O'Neal was the most powerful force on that team, I would say. Just like wreaked havoc on both ends of the floor. I was a big fan of Jermaine O'Neal, and as a Pistons fan, I feared Jermaine O'Neal because he would dominate. He'd go toe to toe with these Pistons teams. Even before their rivalry became so tense that it earned a Netflix documentary. It's because these teams were just absolute powerhouses clashing against each other. So I have a lot of respect for Jermaine O'Neal.
Moving along to, as big as Jermaine O'Neal was, he was always the second biggest O'Neal in the NBA. Very excited to debut Shaquille O'Neal's Top Shot debut. And here we see him. People forget just how athletic Shaq was for such a large human being. And here we see him running the full length of the floor, finishing the layup, a one-man fast break into himself.
I remember two things that stand out about Shaquille O'Neal's playing style. Of course, the first thing you think of is the absurd, unprecedented power, the way he was able to get to the rim. But the second thing that I love is just how surprisingly nimble Shaquille O'Neal was and how delighted he was to show you that. One of the just the most fun personalities on the court. So to be able to find a moment that shows Shaq pulling off a block and then chasing it down for a fast break layup all by himself, starts feeling it on the walk back down the court. To me, that showed a big part of what Shaquille O'Neal is. And to win this title here, this is his fourth title and his first title not with the Lakers. It's just fun to see that side of Shaq get floated.
Now on the other side, right, Shaquille O'Neal got traded from Los Angeles to Miami. The centerpiece going back to Los Angeles in the trade was Lamar Odom, and we're excited to debut his first Top Shot moment here with a vicious throwdown on Dwight Howard. And Lamar Odom in his prime was capable of pretty much everything, right? Point forward, elite leaper, great shooter certain years. And here we see him at the peak of his athletic power, giving the Lakers some room for optimism while they see Shaquille O'Neal dominating in South Beach.
Definitely. I love Lamar Odom as a player. So to be able to get him in the Top Shot, I'm quite excited about.
Moving along here to Tony Parker. This will be his second moment, and this one, just the creative, crafty finish. Tony, at this point in his career, was a bona fide all-star, and here we see him kind of breaking down Jason Terry, the acrobatic finish around the rim.
I love the release point on this layout at his hips. Tony Parker was just a different animal in the playoffs.
Moving along, we've got the big headline rookie of this drop, Chris Paul, as a 21-year-old, breaking down the defense, pretty much unguardable. And here we see him impressed with his own move right here.
When we first started talking about this as a potential year for running back, we were so excited about getting a Chris Paul rookie moment, especially as we're watching him lead his team to the finals in modern times. Chris Paul, he was a superstar out of the gates. Like, there's no other way to put it. He was so good so early. These skills he carries with him to today, but it's fun to see it in those yellow Hornets jerseys. This is the year where they split time between New Orleans and Oklahoma City.
What I really like about this moment too is he's finishing it on Andrew Bogut, the #1 pick from that draft class. And Chris Paul, I think, like rightfully so, thought he should have been the #1 pick, and he dropped a few spots. Fell behind Marvin Williams and Darren Williams as well. So anyway, this is just an elite finish and showing off the elite handles as well. Moving along here to one of my favorite players, you'll see him on the wall right here, Morris Peterson. Mo Pete, I know, Austin, we're both Michigan State fans, and as one of the Flintstones from the 2000s, he'll always have a soft spot in my heart. And here we see him hitting the long-range buzzer beater.
Definitely loved Mo Pete from his Michigan State days. And here in Toronto, like, here's a little bit of the context of the situation. Mo Pete, along with Chris Bosh, who is, earlier in his career, were in Toronto kind of picking up the pieces after their identity shifted when Vince Carter went off to dunk on Alonzo Mourning in New Jersey. So Mo Pete kind of was the original "Don't worry, I got this" guy that kind of held the fort in Toronto. And I think a lot of people reflect very fondly on Mo Pete, whether you're coming at it from an MSU angle or from a Toronto angle.
Yeah, he's another guy that I think in today's NBA just taken to a new level, because he was a 3-and-D guy before 3-and-D was really understood to be valuable and fashionable. Okay, moving along, we've got another Hall of Famer making his debut with the team he's best known for. Here's Paul Pierce with the Celtics at the peak of his athleticism, throwing it down, going way up high.
Yeah, people have been clamoring for a Paul Pierce Celtics moment, and happy to finally get a Paul Pierce Celtics moment. Now, this won't be the Celtics team, this very specific Celtics team that he might be best known for. But for a long time, Paul Pierce sort of had to do it kind of on his own. And here you see him being able to showcase a little bit of a handle, a little bit of a throwdown. Paul Pierce was a fun player to watch.
Moving along to Michael Redd, one of the best second-round picks in NBA history. Another guy that, if he was playing in today's NBA, would be valued even more, because he was just such an elite shooter. Gold medalist with the 2008 Team USA in the Olympics. And here we see him, just a funky finish, the captain of these Bucks teams, one of the best lefties of the century here.
I love seeing the little C on the jersey. And what even is this finish? Can we talk about this sort of windmill hook shot? Michael Redd was a scorer, and that's the fun thing about scorers, is that you don't even know what they're doing half the time, but the ball finds its way into the net. Michael Redd was real nice on these Bucks teams. Led them to the playoffs this year.
Let's just watch this one through one more time, because just for context, look at who he's getting guarded by, right? This defense is so damn elite, and this is why he needs to put together these. So he's got Tayshaun Prince on him, he's got Rasheed Wallace on him, and he's got Ben Wallace protecting the rim. Those are three of the best defenders in NBA history, and he's just slicing and dicing, kind of James Harden-esque here, just putting something up as a floater. I think if he took one more dribble or tried to do anything other than this, he's just getting that shot swatted by Ben Wallace.
Yeah, certainly. You got to get creative when it's Ben Wallace staring you down.
Speaking of great scorers, moving along to another great scorer from this era, we've got Jason Richardson, one of the best dunkers in NBA history, and that's including an era with other great dunkers, and Jason Richardson won multiple dunk contests. As another Michigan State Spartan, Austin, what did you like most about his game?
That's bold praise, but it's completely true. I think one of the most underrated dunkers of all time. Great in-game dunker, great dunk contest dunker, two-time champ, right? Or at least two-time participant.
Yes.
I think he won it twice.
Maybe unreal. Even two or three.
Just totally unreal. A lot of options to pick from for this year, but had to go with a nice little 360, and he makes it look so easy.
Love it. Moving along to another Richardson. This one is Q-Tip. Quentin Richardson with the Knicks, getting up high. This was the second Knicks moment we get on Top Shot from this drop, and Q-Rich. This was coming off, I believe, a 3-point shootout championship the year before. So this was kind of in his prime where he still had the athleticism and can hit shots from all over the court.
Yeah, Giric could get it done any number of ways, but to be able to, to see him get a nice little jump on the defender with the spin move and then throw it down, was happy to be able to get that out there.
Now, the third Nick in this drop, Austin, you did well by me, getting Nate Robinson as a rookie, hitting a big shot at the buzzer over Allen Iverson. And this was kind of his coming to the Garden, coming to the Knicks moment right here as a rookie. Again, one of the most entertaining players of the decade. And here we see him going crazy at the end with his rookie, just a great, exciting young Knicks team.
I love any moment that can really show the Garden in all its glory. But Nate Robinson, he was just you couldn't look away from Nate Robinson. He was clearly, he'd always step up in big moments, just made incredible plays on the court and in the dunk contest. So he strikes me just as the personality that was meant to thrive in the Garden, and to do that in his first year is really kind of fun.
Moving along here, we've got another guy that has a rightful claim to being the best dunker of this era in Josh Smith. One of my favorite players. I covered the Hawks toward the tail end of his Hawks tenure. He ended up going to your Detroit Pistons, where it didn't quite work out, but not for lack of athleticism, not for lack of kind of creativity on the court. And here we see him with the Hawks just throwing it down in transition.
I was always a big fan of Josh Smith, and the amount of top shot worthy moments that he would churn out, on a nightly basis in Atlanta was really quite fun to see. Great two-way player, great block moments, great dunk moments. So to be able to see him kind of just take the ball down the court and throw down a nice little windmill was really kind of fun. But there was definitely a lot of Josh Smith options to pick from.
Yeah, I think my hottest take or one of my hotter takes right now is that I think Ben Simmons has a lot of Josh Smith in him. Maybe not as much of like an athletic leaper, and Ben Simmons is certainly known for being more of a passer than Josh Smith, but Josh Smith had excellent court vision, great passer, and what they did on the defensive end, fairly similar in terms of being able to get out on the perimeter and defend, protect the interior as well. So that's one to just watch for as Ben Simmons progresses, and needless to say, putting Ben Simmons on a team with Andre Drummond and Greg Monroe probably wouldn't have made the most sense. So I digress. Let's move along here to Jerry Stackhouse, now coach at Vanderbilt, but Jerry Stackhouse really kind of saw everything as a player, right? Was teammates with Allen Iverson early in the Philly days, was one of the league's top scorers with the Detroit Pistons, an elite player with the Wizards for a short while, and then came to Dallas, where he really found his groove as kind of an impact player on a finals contender.
Yeah, it's interesting when you hear about all the different, chapters of Stackhouse's career. One thing that was consistent was that ability to get to the rim and punch it home. Stackhouse was such a fun dunker, and love to see it come through during one of the closer into, let's just say, in the latter half of his career. I guess you could say towards the twilight, could still throw it down. And this is a big playoff moment for Jerry Stackhouse on a Mavs team that went to the finals.
We're going to see Jerry Stackhouse at some point in his career as a head coach in the NBA. Mark my words. It's going to happen. He's doing great with Vanderbilt. He's been a contender for numerous head coaching jobs in the NBA. So just keep your eye on Jerry Stackhouse as the years progress, because that guy can coach. Moving along here to one of the headliners of the drop, we've got Dwayne Wade in one of his best moments from his career. What is he doing here? How does he do this?
This is what we're saying. Scorers, we just don't even question scorers anymore. They'll find a way to get to the bucket. The body control, the sense of awareness, to be able to pull all these things off and to have the confidence to even try it. That's a straight up superstar move, which Dwayne Wade was. And this season was such a fun sort of very representative part of his journey from, probably slept on rookie to outright superstar. It's kind of started during this season with moves like this and the subsequent playoff run.
Now, another headliner from this drop, one of the fan favorites of the era, Ben Wallace. This was in the season that he won his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award, and here we see him giving it to Shaq. Really, really strong block. And that's what he did as a 6'8", 6'9" center. He took it to the best of them.
Definitely. This has to go down as one of my favorite plays of all time. Ben Wallace, a very generous 6'8", at that. This was, like, some context here. The Pistons won a title 2 seasons prior, made it to the finals the year prior. The Pistons were kind of the team in the Eastern Conference. And then Shaquille O'Neal, joins the Miami Heat the year prior. And all of a sudden, the Miami Heat start encroaching on this Pistons territory. So there kind of became this nice little rivalry between the Heat and the Pistons as these two monoliths passed each other like ships in the night. And the Heat would end up obviously going, past the Pistons in this one, but not before Ben Wallace could get me one of my favorite moments of all time. So thanks, Ben.
Now, another Wallace in this drop, another Wallace from this era was Gerald Wallace, right? Who was one of the elite defenders and kind of athletes of this era. And here we see him with just one of the most insulting rejections in NBA history, just snatching that ball out of thin air and starting a fast break.
Yeah, a lot of Wallaces in this era. Gerald Wallace, one of the most fun, to be honest. The plays that he was capable of, just an absolutely unnatural athlete. So fun to watch. I love how as he collects the ball, he's already starting to sort of look down the court to see what he can do next with it. I can't even imagine what it might just be like to be Gerald Wallace at this moment in time. Really kind of a fun figure on some early Bobcats teams, right? This was a team still sort of struggling to get its footing, and Gerald Wallace was a fun player to have on that roster.
Now, if you're collecting team sets on Top Shot, the Charlotte Bobcats become the Charlotte Hornets. So this moment ends up in the Hornets team set. The New Orleans Hornets become the New Orleans Pelicans. So that Chris Paul moment ends up in the Pelicans team set. This is just NBA ruling. This is how it goes. So, between us, Austin, I'm terrified of what happens when the Seattle team comes back into existence in years to come. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And Gerald Wallace, obviously, a rightful face to kind of usher in the Charlotte Bobcats to Top Shot. Moving along here, we're going to close out with 2 rookie Williamses. Very different players, very different kind of careers. But Deron Williams, as we mentioned earlier, drafted ahead of Chris Paul. And for a good while there, many argued was better than Chris Paul, was the elite point guard coming up. Had a lot of comparisons to young Jason Kidd, was an elite point guard for a handful of years. Obviously, the centerpiece of a monster trade that landed him in New Jersey, where he kind of was the face of the franchise as the team moved to Brooklyn. What do you remember most about Deron Williams?
Yeah, a big, strong guard that, like you said, for a while there, it was a very reasonable conversation to wonder who the best point guard in that draft was, whether it was Chris Paul or Deron Williams. And Chris Paul obviously has, become just a superstar for so long. And for a while there, Deron Williams was right there with him. This play I love. This is from his first game. This is a 3-star rookie.
Oh, wow.
And it's his debut for Badger, I guess. Never afraid of the big moment. And with the clock ticking down, this is at the end of a quarter. But anytime you can pull off like a 50-footer in your first game in the NBA, that's all right by me. And he had a lot of great plays, big shots, big dunks. Such a fun player. Definitely worth. If you didn't catch Deron Williams the first time around, we're happy to sort of introduce you to him the second time around. So.
Now, last but certainly not least, Sweet Lou Williams, a second-round pick in this 05 draft class. And here we see him as a rookie doing what he does best, which is just score the dang basketball. And here he is with the reverse layup
Yeah, Lou Williams found himself in such a fun situation. A high school, drafted out of high school, one of the last cohorts out of high school, if not the last. And he entered a situation where he could kind of just observe Allen Iverson. So if you're wondering why Lou Williams has become such a potent offensive threat, despite the small frame, just a microwave scorer, I think a lot of it has to do with those early days where he was studying AI. Lou Williams didn't get a lot of run in that first year, but happy to see him, show a nice little up and under.
If you want some Lou Williams kind of popcorn entertainment, just type in on YouTube Lou Williams, Kevin Durant high school, because they go at it. They were two superstars. Lou Williams at South Gwinnett, putting up 40 a game in his sleep as a high school student. And here we see him as a rookie teenager in the NBA doing the same. Austin, 50 unbelievable plays. Just kudos to you sourcing all of these, finding them, and bringing them to Top Shot. I think this is going to be our most loaded drop, top to bottom, just as far as star power and epic moments coming to the platform. Any kind of final thoughts or words?
It was such a pleasure to be able to sort of summarize such a nostalgic era. I think for a lot of collectors, given the demographics of Top Shot, this will hit a lot of fond memories for a lot of our collectors. So definitely a very important drop, and one that I wanted to make sure was as loaded as it could be with some of the best stars of that era. Had just an absolute joy to try to pick these moments, and I'm even more excited to talk about all these moments with everybody out there in the community.
Awesome. Top Shot community, we hope you enjoy. Good luck in the queue if you're waiting for your pack right now. And can't wait to see you. And rest assured, there's going to be some great archive set moments coming to Top Shot, both in this drop, but also in a few weeks. So stay tuned for more info there. Until next time, happy collecting.